Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda sedang menonton Agenda Awani secara langsung dari studio Awani Bukit Kewangan Kuala Lumpur. Inovasi sentiasa dibincangkan di Astro Awani, terutamanya di sini di Agenda Awani. Malam ini tentunya inovasi, tetapi kita tidak mahu bercakap bagaimana tentang inovasi, tapi apakah pulangan daripada inovasi. Dan ini tentunya menarik minat ramai orang kerana ia tentang bukan saja kewangan, tapi juga sebenarnya rezeki, pulangan ataupun dalam bahasa Inggerisnya wealth creation. And with that, I would like to move into English because today I have a very, very great guest. It's always that when we talk about innovation, we keep looking to the more developed nation. And if we were to look at the more developed nation, what do we look at? The main problem in this country is we do acknowledge SDI and R&Ds, but we keep hearing about good R&Ds. But then a few years down the road, where are they? We want to use the products, we want to have the services, we want to get returns from products and services of R&D, but we keep seeing this big gap. One of the main gap that we have is a lot of our R&D resides in public institutions. Because they reside in public institutions, maybe the private sector, whether they are small and medium scale or even big ones, have problems in assessing or even networking with them. There's one particular entity in Germany that I think has solved this problem for a lot of us around the world, because they look at outsourcing of innovation, and they have network that work just specifically to solve, even at the individual entrepreneur level, of customizing solutions for the problems that they have by bringing closer subject matter experts and also maybe the scientists and the R&D experts with the traders and the marketeers. I don't really understand about all this. That's why I have this great person beside me tonight. I'm going to introduce to you a very special guest, which is Dr. Abdul Rizal Abdul Latif. Dr. Abdul Rizal actually resides as the CEO or Chief Executive Officer of Steinbeiß Malaysia Foundation. Steinbeiß was the German entity I was talking about. Doctor, before I go on and on about this, I'm just going to ask you one simple question. What is it about Malaysia and commercialization? Because even if we look at data from the Malaysian plan, if we look at the 90s and then we look at 2001, 2005, the rate of commercialization is actually higher during the 90s as compared to 2001, 2005. And this is from the Malaysian plan. But if we go to the private sector, then that's another question altogether. But in the new era of the 21st century, regardless of which sector you come from, multidisciplinary interactions, partnerships, and also going together as one big entity rather than smaller separate ones, these are the in thing of the current modern economy. Where do you see Malaysia, our report card, in this particular area?
I would say in terms of Malaysia itself, when we talk about rate of commercialization, I would say it's still low.
Okay. Single digit as compared to double digit maybe?
Yeah, I guess so. But I think the reasons that for this to happen, to occur, is I think still we have researchers working in silo and not knowing what the industry needs are. So in your opening talk just now, you were talking about Germany and so on. What we see is that in Germany, the industries work together closely with the research institutes, but it's not where the company or industries goes to the research institutes. What they will do is that the companies will go to the research institute and say, I have this issue, I want this product. But I think here in Malaysia, it's the other way around, where we have a lot of innovation products that's being developed in the universities, but when they bring them to the industry and companies, it seems that that's not what they want. So this is where I think the foundation that's been just set up, Steinbeiß, where we will adopt this German methodology, where it's more of asking the universities to do what the industry needs are.
Sometimes change can be frightening. The setup of the local institutions of higher learning has been there for ages. Some from the 50s, some from the 60s, some from the 70s and 80s. And there's still a debate about do you do more of fundamental research? You do more of applied research. With all that in the ecosystem, how do you see Steinbeiß going in and adding value to it without negatively disrupting the ecosystem that they have, because we would like them to continue the good things that they are doing.
Correct.
However, we just like to realign the focus to be more market-centric, maybe.
Right. Well, how we try not to disrupt what good things they are doing at the university is, again, doesn't mean that something fundamental cannot be commercialized eventually.
Okay.
So, but this is where we have to see the value chain again. There might be some parts of the value chain that brings the product to the market requires some fundamental research. So this is where we have to go in and assist the researchers and tell them that what you're doing is good, maybe in the next couple of years to be brought to the market. So maybe this is also when we should bring in the industry at that stage as well. Because sometimes when you do it too far ahead, this is when I was mentioned just now, that the company will say, this is not exactly what we're looking for. You know, but if they were to start them from the work with them from the start, that's where they might be also be able to say, yes, this is what you're doing is good, but let's tweak it this way until it's good for market.
If you're cooking something, let's not wait until you go for food tasting. Let's look in the pre-cooking particular environment. That's where this interaction must happen. The researcher and the one who's supposed to utilize and commercialize it later.
Right.
And too often than not, this happen later. Maybe this is where Steinbeis is very good at doing, which is matching, because everybody who's taken Commerce 101 will know that a product or service is just answering a need or a want of the society and community. So what's the current and future wants of the society and community, bringing back all the way to all the faculties that have R&D in Malaysia, from pure sciences right up until maybe social sciences, for example. But how would Steinbeis do that, looking at the experiences that we already have in Germany?
I think in Germany, if you were to look the example of Steinbeis in Germany, I would say that one of the reasons for them to flourish and develop in such a way is because of survival. Steinbeis in Germany is set up in a region called Baden-Württemberg. This region years ago, it was one of the poorest regions in Germany.
More agrarian rather than industrial,
and they don't have much natural resources like other regions. But because of the survival instinct, they had to use their intellect to produce things. And from there, that's where you get companies like Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Bosch, you know, Carl Zeiss, and so on. So because of this, now they are the richest region, not only in Germany, but also Europe.
Lucky I have the opportunity to be there few years ago. So I can empathize with what you're saying. So if we were to bring that model here, what's the first thing to be done? Practically, that I'll ask you after this short break. We'll go to the break, but I also want the audience at home to consider, even if you are sending your children to university, always after the SPM results, what discipline would they take? If you are listening to this discussion, this might have a direct correlation of where you'll be happy your younger version would be going to. Because then, after they graduate, there won't be a question of where would you find work? Because if it's already going with the commercialization flow, then of course it'll be there where you are in a few years' time. That we'll discuss after this short break. Welcome. This is the Merdeka month, but Merdeka is not just waving flags. Merdeka also means helping this nation of ours to move forward. And one of the key areas to move forward is providing value for the nation to go higher up the value chain of international trade, science, technology, and innovation. In this respect, that's where the crucial discussion for this tonight is, how do we help increase the rate of commercialization from R&D that we have in this country? Right now, arguably, some say it's still in single digit, less than 10%, some say it's a bit more, maybe 11, 12. But overall, we want it to be maybe nearer to 50 and 60%. So Steinbeis, that we have been discussing, what would be the first step, Doctor? I mean, literally, if you go out tomorrow, what do you do?
I think what we'll do first actually is we'll do an outreach to the industries.
Okay.
Because what we need to know is what are the industry needs, what do they require in terms of improving their productivity and products and so on. From there, when we see the needs of them, then we match them with the experts there is.
Okay.
But in the event that, because we will start with the local experts.
Yes.
But in the event if the local experts are not there, that's when we have to tap our counterparts in Germany or in Europe to assist.
I was reading the website on the makeup of Standbys and its network. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but what I understand is the units in Standbys are very mobile and as nimble as possible. That means it's not large bureaucracy, but it's more subject matter experts, professors, but who knows trade, for example. So maybe matching to what you've just said just now, it's set up in such a way that it's actually not adding any other layer, but it's just networking people together, needs together, and resources and potential together.
That's true. How it works in Standbys Germany and how we will adopt those methods here in Malaysia is we will create transfer centers. For example, if there's a particular project that is created from the industry with the universities, a transfer center will be set up in the university. And as rightfully
inside the university itself?
Inside the university, or within a faculty, for example. Because we are going to, in the process of setting up 2 transfer centers, one in UPM with the biotechnology faculty, and one with UM, partnerships with their initiatives in engineering and nanotechnology. So it could be virtual, or it could be a legal entity. But in Germany, most of them are virtual. It's loose. So this is also another way that how we're trying to get the professors, the consultants, to be business savvy. And at the same time, knowing the needs of the industry.
I want to steal time on that since you brought it up. There's this view that if you're the researcher, I expect you to also be a savvy branding expert. At the same time, I expect you to really be a good accountant and calculating the rate of return, ROIs and stuff. Is it really fair to put that kind of sort of expectation on the shoulders of the researchers? Let's say I'm trying to empathize with the thousands of researchers we have. I've done my part. I've done my research. Do you know how hard it is to get international citations in credible journals, for example? Let's say I pull that side of the argument. How would you talk to them on that? Because maybe they think that, I've done my part. What more do you want from me?
I think this is where Standbys comes in. We will be doing all those for the researchers, for the professors, meaning that if there is a project, we will go to the researcher or the professors or consultants and say, this is what needs to be done. Obviously, there has to be agreements involved. As you were said, costing, finance, and so on, legal. That Standbys will do. So what we just need from the professor is the intellect, their brains, roll it out, and we will handle the rest.
Isn't it better to go forward and then work backwards? For example, if it's nanotechnology, what is there in the lab today might not, by the time it goes to being fully commercialized, be there anymore for that need tomorrow or maybe 5 years' time. So it will involve some kind of foresight, looking forward and then working backward. I have to go for the break. You're going to learn, this might be a breakthrough for multi-billion-dollar commercialization. So what's the secret in that? Because you can't just look at what's around now. You have to pitch where Malaysia is heading, where certain key industries Malaysia is heading, and maybe the overall international market. Maybe this is where the networking of Standbys around the world is also needed to leverage into the whole thing that we've been discussing about. That we'll discuss after this. Some believe that the only thing holding Malaysia back from achieving truly developed nation status and increasing wealth for everyone is commercializing all the wealth of R&D, research and development that we have. So I'm going to go back to Dr. Rizal now, Doctor. We want to go into that multi-billion-dollar stuff, whether it's smartphone, nanotech or biotech, it doesn't matter to a lot of people. What matters is we want to see it happen. We've been hearing the problem of commercialization rate for so long, and now with Steinbeis, we can see the logic of it. But how do we chart the future? Because Malaysia Plan works in 5 years, for example. Malaysia 2020 works longer, but that's getting shorter because it's closer to 2020 now. And because of the competitiveness of the global landscape, you know, we might have to look 50 years and then chart it back for the bigger picture.
I think how we could see the future from all this is, you know, looking at examples of what we see around us now. I think everybody uses phones now, mobile phones, smartphones, but without mentioning names of companies.
Sure.
There are some companies about 10 years ago, we would be waiting for their new model to come out.
Agreed.
But now you would not even pick it up, you know, and it's some of them are becoming obsolete. So why did this happen? Why did this happen? I think one of the reasons is they're complacent.
Okay.
And number two is there is no survival instinct in them.
Okay.
Being complacent means that they will just not innovate. But the risk of doing that is when competitions from other companies, from other brands, foresee a need from the public of something better that makes it easy. So this is where number one is we need to see what are the trends, the needs, maybe in the next couple of years. And number two is forever being innovative, thinking out of the box.
Would Steinbeis advise on that too?
Yes, we would. We would. We would work with both parties, the industries as well as the researchers. We do understand that companies, industries, they are bottom line profit driven. So they might not have the resources to have in terms of the foresight of what's needed. So we could come in and advise.
How do you foresee convincing companies in Malaysia to cough up more for R&D purposes? Even if you outsource R&D, you still have to dedicate resources to it.
Right. I think how we could convince companies or industries to invest in R&D is to weigh the cost. Because eventually, you know, they can't be selling whatever they have now. They can't do just merely trading. They need to improvise.
Survival.
But at the same time, you know, they can't. They might have limited budget in setting up an R&D center and so on. Then why not outsource? This is what we call outsourcing innovation.
The beauty about the current way of looking at economics, trade, and R&D is the world is flat in that sense. What Steinbeis can give is also, you're not just looking at clients in Malaysia. Maybe there's a glaring need for something in Germany itself. And the price competitiveness works. It's just that ensuring the stability of quality of product, for example.
Steinbeis is present in about 50 countries around the world. And with Steinbeis Malaysia adopting the Steinbeis Germany model, we have access to all these foundations, enterprises around the world. So this is also an avenue where the industries in Malaysia can expose whatever they have through other countries around the world and make their products much more accessible.
So how would Steinbeis Foundation in Malaysia operate now? Because I see three key stakeholders. The R&D, people who are involved in it, be it IPTA or whatever it is, and then the industry, SMBs or big corporations, and then the public sector itself, the governance side. So would you be moving all three and putting all three together most of the time?
Well, how we're going to look at this is in terms of we will have the industry doing the job, you know, and also the research universities doing all this together. So we need to make sure that you know, there must be understanding and synergy between both these two parties for it to move forward. And in terms of the governance, because Steinbeis Malaysia Foundation is a non-profit organization, and we are governed by a board of trustees. And the board of trustees comprise of academicians and industry people. So in some ways, the positive ways is that we are not really regulated by certain government regulations and so on. So in industries and academicians can freely give their opinions on how Steinbeis should move forward.
I see big names in the Steinbeis Board of Trustees, but before I go there, it will be launched?
It will be launched on the 28th of August, 2014, in KLCC Convention Centre. It will be launched by the new Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Dato' Mas Yukyong. And we would like to invite yourself, everybody, to come and witness the launch, because during the launch we'll be having a signing ceremony to set up the transfer centres in UPM and UM. So
this is not the kind of setup where only the small group of people are involved. Anybody with anything, ideas or whatever, can walk up to Steinbeis.
Anybody can come up to us and say that Steinbeis Malaysia, I would like to set up a transfer centre. What we're saying is that not one university has one transfer centre, not one faculty has one transfer centre, not one department has one transfer centre. That means in one department you can even have multiple transfer centres. So the transfer centre could only be even one person. And
can even work to one particular entrepreneur with one idea.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. If you don't believe me and Doctor, you can Google Steinbeis, and there's a whole slew of literature on it. It's not too tough to understand. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe we have a party at the end of the month to see finally physically the setup of Steinbeis Malaysia Foundation. Terima kasih banyak kepada anda. Hantarkan pandangan anda sendiri. Mungkin anda juga ada pandangan tentang bagaimana nak rapatkan jurang di antara pengkomersialan dengan kajian R&D dan pembangunan dan sebagainya. Pelbagai platform ada di Astro Awani. Kita ada Facebook, Twitter, Instagram dan sebagainya. Ataupun muat turun aplikasi mudah alih iOS dan Android. Dan anda boleh menonton agenda Awani secara langsung di situ juga. Sekian. Selamat malam dan terima kasih. Jumpa lagi. Thank you so much.